don't, my name is Stacy Dettner-Hovey. I am the new Employee Orientation Program Director for the university. And hello to some of you who I've seen on the coordinate campuses as well. I used to be on the Kappa board. I was vice chair for 2 years and sat as a Kappa senator for the first 3 years of when we had Kappa senators. I was there and ran the governance committee. I've forgotten what it's called. Thank you. What was the R? Representative and governance committee for a couple of years before I was vice chair. And I'm sorry, I did tell you that I walked around a lot, so I apologize, coordinate campus people, that if I go off screen, I'll probably come back. Maybe. And so I am now the new Employee Orientation Program Director, and I've done a couple of similar things where people have asked me to come out and talk about new employee orientation, to just tell people what is going on with it. And so, so that's what I'm going to do here today. I'll tell you a little bit about the whole program and why we started doing something new and where it's going and things like that. And then if you have any questions after that, you can ask. Let me get set up here, if I can remember how to do this. Okay. So, you all have seen this picture before about that goes along with the transforming the U and our goal of being one of the top 3 public research universities in the world. And that's really where the new employee orientation program, this new version of it, got started. Along with the exceptional faculty and staff pillar there, in 2006 there was a transformational leadership project that looked at the orientation process at the university. The process as it was then was a one-time orientation. It was about 2.5 hours long. It was mostly about benefits and retirement, and then there was a little bit of an information fair, and that was kind of it. Does anybody here remember actually going to their new employee orientation? Does anybody remember anything from their new employee orientation?
I was in the new round.
I was going to say, you're in the new one, so you don't count. You don't, but you can tell later about what you think about it if you'd like. I can even leave the room if you don't want to tell me. But and so the TLP folks really took a look at what were the best practices out there. What was going on in the world, both in higher education and in the corporate sector, with orienting new employees and socializing new employees to your community. And they found that the university was really lacking in what it was doing to try and socialize and welcome new employees into the university. There were lots of reasons for this. There's a whole report, just like any good committee at the university writes up. There's a big old report about it. But these are the things that kind of came up most. It wasn't timely. This was 2.5 hours basically about benefits and retirement. And oftentimes, by the time people got to new employee orientation, they'd already signed up for the benefits and retirement. So they would sit there for an hour and a half about things that they'd already done. And they'd either go, oh, wow, I did that all wrong, which wasn't very helpful, or they'd already done it all and it didn't really make any difference. It didn't provide much information. It was very much not interactive. It was very sit and listen. It was both not specific enough to different employee groups and too broad at the same time. It covered a lot of different things, tried to cover a lot of different things, everything that you'd need to know to be a new employee here at the university in 2.5 hours. And it just didn't give enough information, and also, but it didn't give enough information specifically to different kinds and different types of employees. So they were looking at it and they said, here's what we need. We want to use new employee orientation to help achieve the university's strategic goals. We want to improve productivity, improve morale. We want to improve retention efforts. For those of you who don't work in human resources or who don't do a lot of hiring, you may understand that well, certainly right now we're in a recession, and there is a job market where there's lots of people for the jobs. But the reality is that when the baby boomers begin to retire, and a lot of them have kind of been putting off their retirement right now, but when they retire, or if they choose not to retire, I hate to tell them this, but eventually they will die, and there will be a lack of bodies of educated, experienced people to fill the workforce that we have in the United States. We need more people. And certainly at somewhere like the university, we need people who have the education, the experience, the talent, and the drive to fill the opportunities that we have here. And when we get them here, we have to keep them here. And again, I understand we've been through budget cuts, I understand we've been through layoffs, and all those kinds of things, and that reality may not play with what's happening right now, but it will change. Demographically, there's no choice. And so we have to keep people here, and we have to keep the best and the brightest here, because we will easily lose them to the private sector and to places around the world. As you all know, we're competing worldwide now, and not just within Minnesota or within the United States. So we wanted to do these things. We also, finally, wanted to reduce the redundancies that were in employee orientation. People would learn about their benefits and retirement in the central orientation. They'd go back to their unit level, and they'd hear about benefits and retirement, and then they'd talk to their supervisor and hear about their benefits and retirement. And people would be like, what? Why do I, really? Is that all you have, benefits and retirement? So these were the recommendations. Okay, I'm kidding, I'm not really going to read them all. But there were, as with any good university report, like I said, there were 38 recommendations. And they are, in fact, that verbose. But I picked up what I think was the kind of most important things. First, that new employee orientation needs to be bought in by the senior leadership and then spread down from there. We all know that we are overly swamped with work. And if the senior leaders and then aren't telling their deans, their directors, their vice deans, etc., that they believe in new employee orientation and they understand this need for what return on investment we're going to get by really orienting and socializing our employees well, it's never going to happen. Because those of us who are on the front line simply can't afford to have us or our employees gone if we really don't feel like it's going to be useful to the university and to us. So it needed to start from the top down, really get bought in by the university leadership. A new full-time position should be created. That was me. So I really like that one personally. That was my favorite one. It needs to be integrated. Remember how I talked about the things would be repeated over and over again at central, at the unit level, and supervisors? We need to integrate and align those. It needs to brand with the university branding. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then partnering with the existing programs and then learning how to measure that effectiveness. And we've worked on a lot of these things, and we're continuing to work on that last one as well. So start with the university brand. I have been working at the university for just over 10 years now. I started working at the law school and worked with Anne for about 8 years over there. Well, I think you left first, right? Yeah, and then I left soon after that. So maybe 7 years or so we worked together over at the law school. And so I had seen, the university rebranding itself, the Driven to Discover campaign, things like that. And each year, but when I started this job, I was trying to figure out how am I going to mesh what university relations is doing with what we're giving to new employees. And each year, university relations contracts with these Frank N. Magid and Associates to look at the results of work that they do out in the community to find out how the university is being perceived out in the community. And so we'll start by, I just wanted to show, I know many of you have probably seen these ads, but
my name is Doris Taylor from the U of M. I believe if you give nature the tools and get out of the way, anything is possible. Our team discovered how to wash the cells from a non-living heart, inject it with living cells, and make it start beating. Imagine organs built from a recipient's own cells. You could be your own donor. So the search continues.
So how many of you have seen these or the other ads they've done? I think they've done 2 or 3 years worth of them now. And these ads and the Driven to Discover campaign in general are really making a significant impact in the minds of Minnesotans. When we look here, we see that on this 2008, there's never been a higher, and we haven't seen the 2009 ones because they'll do that kind of this fall, assuming that they're still going to have it in the budget to do it again. But it's the favorability rating for the university, and because of this Driven to Discover campaign, has never been higher. So it's really working. People are connecting with the Driven to Discover, and it was being put out in television ads all across the state, and it's still being used, whether it's on the Big Ten Network when we have ad time on there, or in print, things like that, even though the television spots are becoming too expensive for us to run right now. And that Driven to Discover has also helped to support this top 3 goal that we've all heard about and that President Burns has put forward. People really buy into it. You may hear a lot of skepticism about, oh, why not top 1? Why are we settling for 3? You know, that kind of thing. But really, Minnesotans really believe in it. They believe that it's something that the university can do and should do, and I won't go so far as maybe to say as they're willing to support it, because that's all dependent upon what else they have to support, but they certainly want it to happen if they can. And so this is what I was thinking about when we started putting together new employee orientation. This is what the average Minnesotan is thinking about the university. And I want to make sure, most of the time, the people who we're hiring at the university are those average Minnesotans. And so I don't want to waste the money that University Relations has spent to build this really good feeling in the minds of Minnesotans. When they start here, I want them to still have that feeling, still understand that the Driven to Discover campaign makes sense, still use that branding and that feeling so that they connect that with what they're doing here at the university, and they can feel that connection with the vision and the mission and the goals of the university right away when they start here. Bob Brunix talked about in 2007 when he talked about his Transforming the U report. He specifically mentions that, that employees are integral to that top 3 goal. And one of the things he mentions under this bullet is talking specifically about a strong start. So that went with the right branding that I really wanted to get into, and then also with the support of the senior leadership. And so we put together, and so as I was talking about before, our onboarding vision then is really to increase that productivity, their retention, get people the tools that they need right away as they're starting their career here at the university. So this is what we put together. There are 3 main sessions now in new employee orientation. The whole orientation program lasts for a year. The first program we hope happens in the first month or so of the time that you start here, and then the second is 6 months later, and the last 6 months after that. There are also training modules, both general, job-specific, and social, and I'll talk about those in a little bit, that happen throughout the course of the year. And as I said, we're trying to align with the unit-level new employee orientations, and then trying to do supervisory training for what they can do with new employees as well. So in the first session, what we do is we have about 3 hours. Most importantly, we feed them lunch. But we also have kind of a myriad of things that we're doing with them. They can have their pictures taken with Goldie, and we have a little magnetic frame that they get in their packets. We print out these pictures at the end of the day, and they can take the picture and the magnetic frame back and put it right up at work. And you know, it may seem kind of cheesy, but there are a lot of people who get these pictures taken, and they take them back and they put them up at work, and it's something right away that they're right in, and the magnetic frame says Driven to Discover on it. It gets them right into the community, feels like we're really trying to welcome them here. We talk about history of the university, from where we started in St. Anthony, just here. And then that's Old Main, which was our first building. It then burned down, so we don't have it anymore. But we talk about how the first curriculums were either $4, $5, or $6, depending on which curriculum you chose. And then people usually comment about how that's not quite what it is anymore. This is St. Paul. This is the St. Paul campus. Was started off as the university farm that we purchased over there. That is from Crookston. So we talk about the other campuses as well, and a little, just one slide, something like that, of their histories as well. We're working with the coordinate campuses to do their own version of what we're doing here on the Twin Cities campus, so we'll align with those campuses there. We talk about the 4 different kinds of employees that we have here, and what do those mean? I mean, I came here and worked here for 8, 9 years before I really understood, and you're all in Kappa, you know that we might not really understand what those differences are, but what is kind of the overall differences between these 4 employee groups, and what do they do and provide for the university? As I said before, we talk about the different campuses, and specifically about what those campuses offer, what their niche is, within the university system. And then we do talk about the transforming the U and make sure that they hear right away the vision of the top 3. We talk about the Driven to Discover campaign. I show the 2007 ads because I think those are the funniest. And so we show those every time, and they get to see those in this session. We have a little overview of all the senior leadership of the university. We show pictures, and then we kind of talk them through it. It goes pretty quickly, but we also have a flyer that we hand out so that if they are out there and they're hearing names like Bob Brennix and Tom Sullivan and Arlene Carney and Carol Carrier and Steve Colley and all these people, they'll be like, I don't know who that is. Well, you all might not either, but you could go back and you could look at this little brochure and you say, oh, Steve Colley is the CIO for the university. Okay, well now I understand why he's talking to me about technology stuff. Maybe I should listen to that. Or maybe I shouldn't, whatever. But at least they have some idea of who these people are. And then we have one of the senior leaders who they just saw comes and actually speaks to them. They usually talk for 5 or 10 minutes, and as you have heard senior leaders speak, some of them are fabulous and wonderful, and some of them are just fine. But regardless of their speaking quality, it is very nice, and the employees continually say that they really appreciate that the senior leaders really took even just 10, 15 minutes out of their time and come and speak to the new employees. And then we have trivia, and we give out fabulous prizes, like I'm going to do right now. Does anybody have an answer? Sorry, Cornicam says I can't have you answer, but which one of the following was not invented at the university?
Cheerleading, flat screen TVs.
Flat screen TVs, you're right. Cheerleading was in fact invented at the university. There you go. A pen. Congratulations. You got one more chance. How many major performance spaces did the Twin Cities campus have? She's trying to count up in her head, I can see.
14.
No.
Is it within buildings or is it just buildings?
It's performance spaces, but they consider, I'm not going to get into their debate about what they would consider performance spaces.
6.
No. 5. And you know what the best part is when people are like, they're like, okay, A, C, D, and then everybody raises their hand, and then they're like, okay, I got the last one. For those who are counting, it's Northrop, Ted Mann, the Bell Museum Auditorium, Rarig, and the Barbara Barker Center for Dance. It's not my decision who was considered major performance spaces. Those aren't performance spaces. Those might be theaters and things like that, but what the buildings and grounds people consider major performance spaces, again, I'm not debating people on that one. I just put the answer up there. So we have that, and people can get fabulous prizes, and usually that gets people kind of going and talking and laughing and things like that. We also set them up in tables so that they kind of have to talk or interact with each other a little bit. And then we also have time for them to meet with their employee group representatives. So we often have people from CAPA come, and the Civil Service Committee, and there are usually 2 AFSCME unions who come, and they talk to kind of anybody who's a bargaining unit employee. And then someone from Arlene Carney's office from the academic faculty and academic affairs will come and speak to any faculty who we happen to have coming as well. And this is our logo. So this is our piece of what we're trying to do to connect the entire new employee orientation program. And we also talk to them about, we show a code of conduct video, which I'm super excited when President Brunix retires, because then he's in the video enough that we'll have to get a new one. It's a little dated now, but yeah.
How many people will be that will be coming to this orientation?
Well, obviously it's changed since the hiring pause. We were having about 100 to 120 people a month. Now, the lowest we had was about 35, and that was in March. September and October this year, we had 100 to 115, something like that each month. This month we have about, which is tomorrow, actually, tomorrow morning, we have about 75.
I'm just bringing it up because 5 years ago, when you split into your little sections, when you get such a large group to try to talk to, say, your union, at some point there should be like a cap, because it doesn't become very productive when you have such a huge amount of people trying to get information.
Well, when they split into the 3 different groups, they usually end up with less than 30 people in a room,
Okay.
and so that's usually fine. And you've been and done it a couple times. Sarah, you've seen it a couple times. Do you guys find that there's too many people in the rooms?
Well, I'm just
Yeah.
asking if that was part of this process when you did it, if there's actually a cap, like, you know, say,
There is.
okay,
I mean,
the
we-
recession is gone, we're doing really well,
Yeah,
and you get all these
120.
people. Okay,
120 is our cap.
okay.
And that's part of, and we do move people into the next month, because we just can't take more than that. Because not only the room, but also for things like that, it just
Right.
becomes, it's too much for a lot of the things that we're doing.
Mhm.
So then, the next 6 months later, we have, so that's at McNamara. The next one we have is in Kaufman Union in the Campus Club, and that is our diversity training. We talk a lot about, we worked with the Office for Equity and Diversity. We talk about diversity at the university and what it means to the university, and how it's a real part of what we do, how Dr. Rusty Barcelow talks about diversity driving discovery. Then we have a bunch of interactive things. This is really a very interactive session, this one in particular. We do this diversity timeline, so people can talk amongst themselves and also process themselves about kind of what are some, and they've changed some of these A through H now as well, but what are some events that happened in your life that kind of fall on that diversity timeline? We talk about the units within OED so that people can get some resources and information. We have some scenarios that OED put together. There's about 6 of them, I believe. And they really are scenarios that they read through as a table, and then they discuss kind of what they think the best answers would be for whatever's happening, whether it's, we used to have one that was on kind of a sexual harassment scenario. That one we swapped out for something else. They're very interesting, and they're a little bit different than the norm. And then they share back with the whole group. And it really does get a lot of discussion going. And then we talk about being an ally and what that means, and how people can do that in their everyday life and their everyday workplace. And then we give door prizes, and we have the feed and breakfast, and then the campus club gives them a $5 coupon if they want to go for lunch. And so again, it's trying to get people to talk to each other and meet with each other and get to know their colleagues as well. And then 6 months after that, we meet again over at Anderson Library on the West Bank. And we tried to get over to St. Paul, for those of you who are in St. Paul, but it's the only center that could really hold us was the Continuing Education Center, and it's just really expensive. So we don't go to St. Paul. Sorry about that. We try to have some of the smaller programs in St. Paul. The last program, we talk about personal and professional development opportunities here at the university. So we start with professional development opportunities, and again, we have some interactive stuff, a quiz that they have to do together, and they kind of compete table against table and things like that. We talk about things like organizational effectiveness or the College of Continuing Education. We talk about professional development opportunities through going through some of the university professional organizations. Then we talk about technology. We talk about opportunities that people have both to learn different technologies, but also the things that can help you collaborate in your job here at the university, like the U of M Wiki, like U of M Connect. And then we just go briefly over things that everybody's heard about, but a lot of people don't know much about still, like Twitter or Facebook or things like that, and how they can help you professionally as well as just, be used as a social medium. And then we talk about public engagement. And we worked with the Office for Public Engagement to talk about what is the university's land grant mission, what is that outreach piece, and why is it important to every employee, no matter what it is that you're doing here at the university. We talk about how having an engaged campus, and then we actually give them some ideas and suggestions for what they might do internally and externally to get engaged and to build that engagement level. Certainly some of the internal opportunities include governance. And we always mention the different governance bodies that are here and getting on committees and things like that, so that they know that those things are out there and they can get involved. Even if they aren't going to get involved right away, they kind of have that in the back of their mind. And again, we have another flyer that has lots of information in it so that they can refer back to it later. And finally, we talk about wellness, whether it's the wellness program or the Center for Spirituality and Healing, the Rec Center, all those kinds of things. We talk about the wellness assessment that we do every year and how you can get paid for that in that wellness program. So again, really trying to allow for employees to see what are those things that are personal and professional development that they have here as university employees. Again, to try and really welcome them to the community, make them feel a part of it, and hopefully get them to stay here. Show them that, okay, you've been really focused on your job for the last year, now you hopefully know what you're doing. Here's some new opportunities that really will help you get out there and get to know more about the university and more about yourself and grow as a person and professionally and hopefully stay here on the university campus. So those are the three big things, the three big sessions that we have. And we have probably about, I'd say 80-ish, 85% of the people come to the second session who came to the first one, and maybe 60 to 70% of the people who come to the first session come to the third one. So we have a pretty good retention rate, considering that some of the people have actually left the university within that year. And certainly there are people who can't come that day and they come a different day or something like that. But I'm pretty satisfied with the 60 to 70%. For things at the university, to get 60% of anybody to come to anything, I'm pretty good with that. I'm feeling pretty happy about that. So, throughout the rest of the year, interspersed, there are lots of other things that we do. We do some job-specific trainings that we worked with different offices on. For example, if you're a communicator here at the university, we worked with University Relations so that there's a communicators, so that University Relations can talk directly with new communicators. We have one for HR, OIT, teaching. We've continuing to work with research people, looking at, and there's a student services one that we're going to be doing in early December. So new student services employees can get a feel for all of the things that we do here at the university and how that vast array of student services works can be done and can be resourced for them as new employees when they're dealing with students. We also have a bunch of trainings that are generalized. Things like the libraries trainings that are done every month. And so they can get a sense of the libraries and how the library could help them in their job or just as a library. I guess I didn't really even know until I started this job that the library is, a library. You can get books there, like, to read. And I just didn't know that. So we tell them that. We also have a new series that's starting, actually tomorrow as well. It's a three series talking about communicating at the U. The first is communicating through differences. It comes out of the conflict fluency course that organizational effectiveness does in the Office of Human Resources. And it's really talking about conflict and differences and how you can continue to communicate even if there's something happening between you and this person that you're communicating with. The second is really communicating with our stakeholders. So it's both a customer service training, how can you communicate best with people, but also who are our stakeholders and how broad is that net and how what you do here may affect lots of other things. And sometimes when you're in your job, in your silo at the university, you may not realize kind of what the broader scope of the stakeholders are. And the third thing is then communicating at the university. What is the organizational culture at the university? How can you communicate best here? What seems to work? What seems to not to work well? And those kind of things, trying to give people some good roadmaps while they're starting off so that they don't get frustrated. Then we're going to have some online things like a parking and transportation so that people can see that before they start. And the phones, email, OIT, how does that kind of thing work? And again, we realize that these things can be specific to units. So we're doing as broadly as we can. And then we do have the benefits of retirement. So we haven't forgotten about benefits of retirement. And then we have socializing. We have culture crawls, which are things like gathering. We get a night where they go to the Weissman and then they go to a play. Or they go to a lecture or Bell Museum and then they go to a lecture. Something like that. Trying to get them out to see the cultural aspects of the university. Go for Go is a similar kind of thing except for athletics. So they got to go to a soccer game this fall and then they had a coach's talk beforehand so that they could hear more about what the women's soccer team was doing. Their end of this month, they're going to go to a women's basketball game, and then they'll have a coach's talk before that as well. Again, giving them a time to meet and talk and socialize as well as do something interesting. And then we have what we call brown bag fun lunches, which I think are the most fun because we get to do whatever we think would be fun. And so, and they really don't have to have any purpose except to be fun over lunch. So we've gone to the Raptor Center, we've had an astronomy lecture, we toured the Northrop organ, we're going to get a tour of the dental clinics, we are going to get a tour of the vet lab or the veterinary school. We're going to, we got the chef at the campus club talked to us about eating locally. Whatever we can come up with, whatever we think we want to do, that's what we go do. And they're really well attended. We usually have 15 to 20 people come each month to these brown bag fun lunches as well. And then just briefly, I talked about the unit level alignment. This fall, we're going to be putting out templates for the units to be able to use on their own, in their own units, whether they're building their own programs or enhancing their programs, and certainly to understand completely what we're doing now that we've built the program, so again, they can align with what they're doing and not have repetitive or redundant information. I do trainings, and have any of you ever heard of or been to Keys to Supervision? You've been through it? Okay, a couple people have. I now do, the last year or so, I've done an hour. One of those hour slots is for new employee orientation. So really telling supervisors how best to work with new employees. What are those kind of things that you can do to help integrate your new employee into your office and make them feel welcome? And again, telling them what we're doing so that we can align those three levels, the central, the unit, and the supervisory. We have our new employee orientation website, which we're actually going to be working to redo and have updated a little bit. But we also have something specifically for new employees, and that is what we put together in Ning site. So all of those courses that I talked about, all of the things that we do, all the social activities, all the things that we think the new employees might want to know about, go on this Ning site. They don't have to be a member to join, to see what's going on there, but this can all be in one place, and they can just go here and look things up. The reason why we don't have it on our main site is because a lot of people want to go to some of these social events, and we really have to let the new employees go first. So we set this up so that it would be accessible to everyone if they find it somehow, but it's a little bit off so that the new employees have kind of their own space where they know that they can go and get that information. We also communicate with the new employees' supervisors. Have any of you had new employees that you get emails from us? You? Okay. So we try and communicate with the supervisors at least once a quarter to tell them about, either when we start brand new training programs, we might tell them then, but also just kind of once a quarter to let them know kind of what's coming out, what's happening with for their new employees, what they might be interested in sending their new employees to, that kind of thing, just so that the supervisors have an idea of what's going on, since many of them have no idea that we even have a new employee orientation program as well. And then we're going to be working with coordinate campuses. We're going to be working, right now, this program is really piloted for the kind of general 75% time employee. But you can see all of these different groups, part-time employees, graduate students, postdocs, adjunct faculty, all these groups, people have said, hey, we should do something for this group and that group and that group. So that's kind of our next thing, is now we've kind of put this program together, we're going to be working on these different employees, the coordinate campuses, and continuing to look at how we're going to measure the success of this. How's it working and what can we do better? And then in the future, doing things like making sure that we're really aligning with recruitment. So we're saying, not only were we saying the same things in the Driven to Discover, but really on our recruitment pages, how can we make sure that lines up with what I'm saying in new employee orientation? And then expanding beyond new employees to have some of these things out there for current employees so that we can try and improve morale and retention rates among current employees as well. But the new employees are a great pilot because they're a definite group, and you can tell them anything, and they believe you. And so you can say, hey, the university really believes us. It's a great place. This is what's, you're going to get. It's good to work here. The communication is great. The meetings are short and efficient, and they'll believe you. And, and maybe you can change culture that way, and our meetings will become shorter and more efficient. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or ideas or suggestions? Yeah.
Yeah. As a new employee, how long is a new employee in?
1 year.
1 year.
From the time that they start that first session.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's a new employee who has raved to me about employee orientation.
Oh, good.
And so just wanted to say that. The other thing, as you were doing this, the piece on diversity is a module that would be fabulous for me to take back to my unit. Is there a way to do that
Absolutely.
kind of thing?
Contact me and we can try and set that up. We can try and set it up so that, because it's such, equity and diversity, they rotate it, they have like probably 20 different presenters, and they rotate them because this is every month. We do all 3 of those big sessions every month, and so there was never going to get one person who could go every month. So they have a lot of presenters who've done it and who are very good at it, so we could probably do it for a unit in a way that would, and find people to do it because it's just easily done. So be happy to just contact me. Oh, I do have a card. I can give you a card even.
I can find you.
Or you can find me too, yeah.
Okay.
Did I see another, yeah, yeah.
I was adjunct for a long time, and then in about a little more than a year, I switched to 100% appointment and student services
Yeah.
in IT, so PNA now. But I didn't know most of the. I mean, I didn't ever know about a new employee orientation, and most of the things that you talked about today, I had just really
Right.
only know the surface
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and
is
that's,
there a way that I can
if you want
experience
to,
some of those?
if you want to sign up,
Okay.
you can email me and we can sign you up and fake you in. The reality is that PeopleSoft, should I just say that so everybody knows what that I mean? That PeopleSoft, if someone starts here 10 years ago and then they leave and then they come back, PeopleSoft might decide that they've come back and they want to put them in the new employee orientation program, or it might decide that they started 10 years ago and they aren't a new employee. Or if someone switches jobs, or if someone started a new employee, went through the new employee orientation program, and then a year later you get a new job, it might decide you're a new employee again. And so that's why, if you all feel like people, you have new employees who are new to you or kind of new within the university, but they aren't getting our stuff, just send them our way. And you can certainly sign up, and you can be a new employee even though you've been here for a while. Because PeopleSoft isn't that. It's all data in, data out, and it depends on what people are putting into the system.
And if you're hired as a temporary hire, are you?
The temporary hires, some people come and they say, well, I'm not going to be here in a year. And we're like, well, then you can decide to stay or keep going through the program or not. It's really up to you.
But they get flagged though.
But they can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
University has very nice mentoring program for future faculty. But as I know, there is no such program for PAs
Mm-hmm.
or civil. And I'm terrified what would happen when, for example, our editor will retire.
Yes.
I don't have anybody who even close to her.
Yep.
Is it any?
There is actually groups working on succession management here at the university. It's probably about 3 or 4 years later than it should be, but we're moving. If you have specific questions, you can contact me, and I can put you in touch with the people in organizational effectiveness who are working specifically on those questions. And there are some groups around campus, like the Academic Support Resources, who are doing this really, really well. But there are people within organizational effectiveness in human resources who could help you and kind of work with your unit specifically to say, okay, how can we look at some of the succession management stuff now rather than when this editor is gone and you're all like, ah! So yeah, just contact me and I'd be happy to put you in touch with the people who are doing that. Yeah.
I was just wanting to say I'm really happy to see that the template for the school or unit level is coming out on how to integrate with our own orientations. I'm looking forward to seeing that come.
Yes, I know that we've worked for a long time on it, and there were some university things that happened that made it slow down, and then there were some personal things that made it slow down. And then it's just like, but it's finally coming. So we've actually got a draft sitting on my desk, so it's going to be out this fall. I don't know when fall ends. This semester, I'll say.
There we go.
Any other questions or comments, ideas, suggestions? Yeah.
I guess I'm curious too about the future planning for existing employees and making some of this available.
Yep.
It seems with the retention goals that you laid out that it makes sense to expand it to current employees.
Absolutely.
Or even, I don't know, I guess even allowing employees, one of the things that we've talked about in CAPA is, when people, like you mentioned, if you move from civil service to PNA, you may not get a new orientation, you may not ever hear about CAPA again, about what changes you have, or as someone mentioned. So if you even have strategies to start catching some of those people, that would be great.
And I agree. I am the only full-time employee on this program. So, I am with you. But it's a matter of resources. It's just pure and simple. And so we have these things, and our theory was, I had even bigger plans when I first started. Ann knows I just, I think big. But we built the program. It's really a very innovative program. I have not found programs like it anywhere else in the country, whether, there's a couple private sector programs, but nowhere else at other universities, et cetera. So there's not even anybody for me to copy, who I'd be more than happy to. I would, that's fine. So it's there. It'll probably be at least another 6 months before we really start rolling some of this stuff out for other employees. There are some of the, like the job-specific trainings and things that people have said, you know what, like OIT has said, okay, we've done this 3 times for new employees. We're opening it up next time. And I'm like, that's great. If you guys are ready for that, send it out. We'll take them on. We'll help with that. So it's going to start, but probably in pieces. And you know, the reality is then too is that we need to work on the retention plan needs to be more comprehensive too, and that's something that OHR is working on, but we don't have again the resources to focus only on that.
Is there something specific to the other two, you know, the 2 other modules, not the first initial large program that you do, but the other 2, is there content that is specific to new employees, or is there a reason why, you know, if you're only having 80% retention and then 60% retention, could those extra seats be opened up to existing employees, or is the content really focused, I mean, would it not be relevant to someone who's been here for 3 years?
No, it might be relevant, but we do kind of take the assumption that people don't know. So we explain a lot of the offices within the Office of Equity and Diversity. Now, a lot of people don't know them. I grant you that, but then there might be more things where new employees are more likely to feel okay if they're getting repetitive because they know they're new employees. I probably would change things up a little bit. Like if we're going to do something like that for your unit, we would change it up and just the way that things are approached a little bit. But no, if on the other hand, I have had people come and say, kind of specifically case by case, can I send my employees to this? Can I send my current I want to send my whole entire staff to this one. I'm like, well, how big is that staff? But then we have let that happen. So, you know, it's just we aren't ready to. So if you have things that you want to go to or you have staff you want to send to something that you've seen here, we can do that. It's just we're not ready to open it up hugely because then we go from 1,000 employees to 16,000. And I'm sure not everybody is going to want to go, but that's just a big old jump. So. All right. Thank you very much for letting me come, and thank you guys for helping.